Welcome once again to another edition of the Brattlecast. This is Jordan Rich. Great to be with you, and great to be with Ken Gloss, the proprietor of the world-famous Brattle Bookshop in Boston. And we are thrilled to get together every time in the studio to talk about cool stuff. And this topic will relate to everyone within the sound of our voice, because you brought in a bunch of high school yearbooks?
High school yearbooks.
Wow. Memories are flooding back to me from the 1970s on mine. But what's the significance of some of these yearbooks?
Well, I went to an estate, and the person collected a lot of things about schools. There was a Boston, so particularly schools in the Boston area, and there was a shelf or two of just old yearbooks. And I thought, gee, this is really interesting. I mean, there's Newton High School from 1911.
Wow.
And you look at the yearbook and the drawings, and you look at the students. And then there's one from 1970, another one, the yearbook of 1942. And I started thumbing through them and saying, they're interesting for a lot of reasons. Is there somebody famous in it?
Sure.
Also, you realize when you start looking through yearbooks like this, maybe not each individual one, but you can see what the fashion of the time was, even by the way they take the pictures.
Absolutely.
What the people were wearing, or you start reading about what they talk about the school, and what they're emphasizing, or sometimes what the hopes and dreams of the students are, and you realize that the high school yearbooks have a lot in it. Now, there are some yearbooks, like if you had a very famous person's yearbook, and it's signed, and many of them are signed to people. I one time had Ernest Hemingway's high school yearbook.
No kidding. Wow.
And the person I got it from had gone to high school with him.
For whom the school bell tolls, right?
But so that people can buy them for that reason. About 3 or 4 of these I saved aside because they were 1968, and I have a cousin who collects 1968.
The one that's from the 70 or 1970?
Yeah.
Looks like the set of Laugh-In. It's got that mod kind of crazy color stuff. And the one I'm looking at that I just picked up from the pile, the yearbook for 1942, is interesting because that's the war era.
That's the war era. Now, this is a girls' high school. So, but also, too, the war era tells you, it's amazing when you get these together and look at them over the years, what they can tell you about what was going on in the class, again, the fashion, the looks, what the outlook was. And I just actually found it fascinating reading through them. But I'll tell you, the interesting part about this is when I was going through the pile of yearbooks, I always look for 1968 because I have a cousin who collects it.
Yep.
And then the next thing you know, there's a Boston Latin School high school yearbook from 1968, and guess who's in it? Me.
Oh, my goodness.
It's my, and I'm going, that's exactly what I said. and you know, this is getting a little bit more on a personal, but a lot of times, high school yearbooks, unless you have that very famous person in them or there's something very unusual about it, usually are not terribly valuable. They're valuable to maybe the 50, 100, 200 or 300 people who are in that class, but they don't mean a lot to everybody else. Now, if a person wants to get their high school yearbook, that can be really tricky because there were probably only 200 or 300 of them made. There's also the old advertisements.
I'm looking in the 1942 Hickox Secretarial School is advertising. You've got the Sargent Studio that took the photographs, florists, shoe stores, and all the stuff that makes sense, you know, especially with prom season. They probably want to make sure plumbing and heating. So these are the ones who support the production of the yearbooks.
Maybe relatives of the students or people who went to the school. But you know, you sort of go through, you see the athletic teams, you see the pictures, you see what the clubs were, and you know, what was considered important for that.
Now, I'm looking at Jamaica Plain High School, so this is mixed boys and girls. I'm looking at the baseball team, the track team, and, of course, the hairstyles from the 70s, from the 40s, from the 90s, they're all different.
Well, it's 1940s, which is the war period, so there's a Red Cross Club.
There's a Red Cross Club, Agricultural Club, Spanish. Wow.
Well, but another reason people like high school yearbooks, now sort of the social media now has changed that a little, but when you look at your high school yearbook, in a way you sort of, I wonder what happened to this person, that person, whatever. Now, a lot of it now you can go online and you can actually be almost the fly on the wall. But I was looking through my high school yearbook. Now, I went to Boston Latin School.
Is that it right there? You know I have to look at your picture.
Yeah, you can do that. And I am, oh, no, that's someone else's picture that I know.
Okay.
But this is, and actually there might be another person or two that you know in this.
I'm sure there is.
But
there's Ken. Look
yeah.
at that. You look handsome. Well, you look handsome now, but
thank you. I
you
just look about 50 years younger than
you look a little bit younger. And it's so interesting. I mentioned hairstyles. The guys right next to you and right around you, all over you, you guys have the same look, the same hairstyle.
Basically.
It's really cool. Wow. Now, was this an all-boys?
It was an all-boys school.
School.
That, in my opinion, is the biggest improvement in the school. Was about 5 years later, it went co-ed.
Yeah.
And I would have very, very much loved a co-ed school.
Of course.
I think it would have been better for me. Now, the other thing about Latin school is, and this sort of surprises a lot of people, this year is the 390th year of Latin school coming up, and that very soon it will be 400 years old.
It is the oldest public school in America.
It's the oldest
right?
public school. It was started a year before Harvard as a prep school for Harvard, and it's gone there now. But I started flipping through the pages, and I was looking at one person, and he now owns one of the largest financial companies in the United States.
Wow.
I was looking at another person on this page somewhere. There's a man named Larry Harmon. He was the editorial editor of the Boston Globe. I was looking up someone else, and he started a high-tech computer company. Another person in the class was an assistant attorney general for financial issues. So you start looking at your the old classmates. The other thing that amazed me about it was how many people I didn't know, that I didn't know when I was in high school. And then I look at one picture and I see them and I go, you know, that person was a jerk.
Yeah, that's true. A jerk then, and probably a jerk now. I have a question. What's the Victory Club?
The Victory Club was had to do with the athletic teams.
Okay,
so,
all right. Because
Latin school didn't have cheerleaders
because there were no ladies.
There were no ladies.
Okay.
So they had sort of teams that supported the athletic teams, but you also had camera clubs. Now, the other thing about it that I find very interesting in this is a lot of the students went to Harvard. There were probably 20 or 30 who went to Harvard. There were a lot that went to the Ivy League schools. I went to UMass and Amherst. And looking back on it, some of the students who went to Harvard are incredibly successful and doing well, but some of them, quite honestly, floundered a little, maybe got out of Harvard, had jobs, normal jobs, and then some of them who just went to like UMass or other schools did incredibly well. And it makes me realize, and I tell everybody, going to college, the high school students, there's so much pressure on them now to get into that first college, second college. And I like to say, you know, I saw a lot of that pressure. I didn't care. I went to UMass. It was a lot cheaper, to be quite honest.
And you did okay,
and
by
it was a good school.
Yeah.
But, you know, I say to students, look, go to a school, decide whether you want to be close or far from home, whether you want it to be big or small, whether you want it to be a campus or a city. As long as it's a good school and you're willing to work hard, a lot of it doesn't count. But one of the big things that I did get out of Latin school, and you do get out of colleges, some of the ranking ones, is I still am friends with a lot of the people. Of course, I'm in downtown Boston, so they know where to find me.
Everybody knows where to find you.
But there was a lot of connections that I've made over the years that I've stayed close to. But I read through the yearbook, and some of them I go, I wonder what happened to.
You know, a question I always think about when I look at a yearbook is, did anybody who produced and edited and published the yearbook, the students, did they go on to publish other things in their lives? It's interesting to wonder.
Well, I was on the yearbook staff for photography.
So books?
For photography, no.
Okay.
So I see a few of the pictures I know that I took. But a lot of them in this class went on to be, like I say, influential in many things. Matter of fact, when 9/11 happened, Richard, the man who shut down the airlines, was in my class.
Well, Boston Latin is, as you say, venerable, coming up on a big anniversary celebration, and some of the top people.
Of these yearbooks, though, probably if you could find a person in any one of these yearbooks, who went to this class, could probably look through it. And I'm saying, oh, this person did this, and that person did that, and that, and it sort of brings back memories.
Yeah. When I look at mine, I say, I can't believe I wore that. Polyester stuff. We all did. I mean, that's what...
Well, that was it. But that's where it brings out the fun, along with looking at yearbooks that have nothing to do with me, but they're really telling a time. And if you get a lot of yearbooks from one school, sometimes 20, 30, 40 years, it wasn't quite in this, you can almost watch the school either growing or shrinking, or how the community was doing, or what they were emphasizing.
So Ken, if people listening are thinking to themselves, boy, I would love to peruse through some yearbooks, they can find some in the store? They
can find some in the store, although I can almost guarantee you that they're going to go out very soon, and you better get in within a day or two of them going out, because not only will people who went to these schools be interested in buying them, but people like yearbooks.
They certainly do, especially when the picture came out pretty good back then, whenever that was. Anyway, fascinating subject. Don't forget to go to brattlebookshop.com for much more. And thank you, Ken, for showing me what you look like in '68.
Well, I'll also say that if any of my classmates are listening and they don't have their yearbook and they want to see it, this is an extra copy. I'd be happy to have them come in, get a cup of coffee, and look through our old yearbook.
All right, fair enough.
It would be fun.
Thank you so much, and we'll join you next time on the Brattlecast.